Hello, everyone. My name is Flavio Diaz-Miron Rodriguez. I'm from Mexico. I lead the Mexican chapter of INBAU, and we're also organizing a summer school of traditional architecture and urbanism. You can check that on our website, inbaumexico.com. Sorry for that commercial. Thank you, first of all, for Nir Burras, for the CPI team, for organizing this event. I am very humbled to be moderating this session called The Next Generation. I consider more myself a vessel in which I meet incredible, talented people that I hope to see them one day as a well-rounded individual making amazing work. So without further ado, let us start. And it is my pleasure to introduce Christopher Derrick. Hello, Christopher.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you. It's a pleasure being a part of this event. Thank you for having me. So Professor Burris asked me if I could give you a quick summary of my background. My trek into classical architecture is a little bit longer and meandering than most. I started off before going to college for architecture framing houses, vernacular houses, because at that point in my life, I thought that's what all architects did. At that point in my life, I went to University of Illinois, Chicago, and I got a very thorough modernist education in architecture. And I feel like I have been attending Modernist Anonymous ever since then. So once I got out of school, I really started working on residential work because that's what I loved that got me into architecture to begin with. And I was designing basically traditional vernacular homes. Over time, just the desire to have something that was a little more traditional, a little more authentic, led me to founding I was actually the founding president of the Chicago chapter of the Institute of Classical Architecture back in 2009. And basically I looked at that as this is a way for me to get a much wider and deeper education in classical architecture. I'm currently one of the directors of the American Institute of Architects in our region. Is slightly challenging due to the nature of work that I enjoy. And also I spent a lot of time on the zoning board for our local jurisdiction. Now, as far as the kind of work that I do, I have been trying to incorporate more traditional work into a community that focuses on I'd say vernacular and much more modern design. And those are some of the things that led me to both the Institute of Classical Architecture and after that, Classical Planning Institute. As my projects began to get much larger, they started impacting not just a single lot in a community, but streetscapes. And so due to my lack of training from a modernist school, I sought out the Classical Planning Institute, where we've spent a lot of time focusing more on the larger community, more of what a traditional neighborhood looks like, because that's the direction that a lot of my work has been going. If you don't mind, I'd love to show you a couple quick images. And these are so this is one of the current buildings that we have up. Just finished this a couple years ago. And this is in a neighborhood that has it's a kind of a main artery going into the downtown area of one of the local towns. And most of the buildings around here are more modern. I'm afraid I don't have photos of them, but the idea was let's bring something traditional into this neighborhood, something that has more of a human scale and feel to it. It took a while to convince the developers to go this route, but one of the things that I saw happen is that this sold quicker than any of the other projects around. And it seemed that the general population really were drawn to just this style building and the idea behind it, which led us to doing multiple phases of the same project. And so instead of it being a main artery with a couple of traditional buildings on a more modern street, we now have 3 different phases of the project, and we're kind of taking over this little artery going into the downtown of this local town. So this is how I'm applying what I'm being trained currently in the Institute, and also what I've learned in the past with my present design. Some of the other things that we've had an opportunity to do is working with some of the people in the Classical Planning Institute. we've been looking at how to redevelop different plots of land, looking at larger plots of land. Specifically, this is a piece that we were looking at just outside of Jerusalem, a place called Hebron Road. And I saw Mr. Urich is there, and he's been helping us along with this project. And this was a development that originally they had really skyscrapers, some of them 16, some of them 30 stories tall. And so we were tasked with the job of kind of creating a new look for this community, kind of applying more of a Haussmannian town plan to this 10-block section. And so this is something we're currently working on, and it's taking that same section, breaking it up into much higher density buildings, but lower stories. So we're trying to stick to around 6 stories to kind of create something that has much more of a human walkable feel to this development. And this is currently where we are. Hopefully over the next few months, we're going to be continuing on this, starting to put together streetscapes, refining a lot of the details, but this is kind of just the blacked out version of the direction we're going. At one point, Professor Burris was able to present this to some of the town planners in Jerusalem, and they were very receptive to this approach because it's very different from what they see going on there currently. And that is very quickly what I have been up to. So you want to hand it over to you to the next person?
Yes, thank you, Christopher. That was amazing. And next we have on our session a very young, talented architect. Her name is Maria Solovoy. She's from Ukraine. Maria.
Yes, hello everyone. 1 second, I will share my screen. Okay, just to make sure, is it clear? Can you see my slides? Okay, so hello everyone, my name is Maria. I'm currently an architecture student at the University of Edinburgh, and today I'll be talking about the topic that resonates deeply with our fundamental human need, and it is belonging. As human beings, we are inherently shaped by our surroundings, often on unconscious level, yet these environments profoundly impact our body and mind. Exploring architecture's role in fostering human connections, it is essential to understand this fundamental aspect of our well-being and how our interactions with each other shape the spaces we inhabit. Architecture, therefore, transcends its physical form to evoke emotional responses and cultivate social cohesion. It serves as a catalyst for developing a profound sense of belonging with communities. However, as we observe the evolution of our cities, it's evident that many are losing their inherent connection due to the abandonment of traditional construction methods and erasing already successful historic precedents. The prominent example that I recently witnessed is Edinburgh University campus itself. It is very important part of the student life in the Edinburgh University. And in 1960s, university aiming to expand started buying the property to build new campuses and destroying old buildings. Hence, now the square is divided into 2 parts, that is, preserved Georgian part and this one, and modernist one. And by analyzing personal and public's behavior in this area, I realized how naturally I was drawn towards classical part of the building, and to such extent that it prompted me to develop something from that, to develop my future project. And I'm showing that just an example how architecture greatly impact us on daily basis. Me being highly aware of it, I realized that majority are impacted by building environment on unconscious level, and it is architects' responsibility to grow the appreciation for traditional building methods and materials that cultivate inherent relevance, whether it is the use of locally sourced materials or time-honored construction techniques. These elements contribute to a sense of continuity and belonging within a community. By integrating these practices into modern architectural designs, we can create spaces that resonate with people on a deeper level, fostering a connection to both the past and the present. Building not only shape the way we move and interact within a space, but also influence our behavior and emotions. And as Dr. Burris mentioned before in the discussion on the Middle Ages construction tradition, there was some present public feeling of instability and danger. And I think this tendency also applies to current times. Building environment having a direct correlation to the feeling of safety by, first of all, being in shelter. Hence, its appearance carries a great impact on the social notion of the daily comfort and consequently the ability to cultivate connection and belonging to our environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Thank you very much. Next, we have all the way from Asia, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Tarini Sharma.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Tarini. One second, let me just share my screen. Right. So I'm currently an architecture student at the University of Sydney in Australia, but I'm currently in Singapore for a semester exchange program. So I've been here for the past 4 months, but I'll be ending soon and going back home. And I just wanted to thank the event for allowing us to speak here because it's so important for us to talk on a platform like this, which allows young people like me, Maria, and all of us to, talk about traditional architecture and our experience as the youth. So I just want to start by talking a bit about my current education and my experience at university. So like most of the undergraduate architecture universities that are there today, mine is also a modernist university. I went into the degree pretty clueless on what it's like to study architecture and how it's taught. And I didn't really have an opinion on good or bad architecture. But according to me, from my experience so far, these are the pillars that form an architecture university education today. So the first is, of course, modernism. We are not trained to know architecture from different periods, sadly. Sure, we read through them through like a 1 semester history class, but beyond that, we don't learn the practical methods of traditional architecture. And the second is this blank page that is really popular in the education that we see today. It's a bit funny how the emphasis on context is quite low. We're given an empty page and told that, okay, here, design, create something new, be unique, be different. And thirdly, the focus on being conceptual instead of practical, which is also a bit funny. We're told to focus on creating a story and a concept rather than building a structure that works. And these are the main problems that I have sort of faced at a modernist university so far, which some of the other people going to university these days might face as well. I wanted to show you the results of the problems through some of the models I've made in my first and second year of university. I'm currently in my 3rd year, 1st semester now. You might look at some of these and think, how are they architectural models? And you're completely right in thinking so, because they're so conceptual and they're so pulled away from the actual building. But I've been commended for these and I've scored pretty well on projects despite building these models. And of course, I've enjoyed making these and having all this creative freedom and imagining all these like fun and interesting kind of buildings, especially like in my first semester. It was so different from anything I'd done in school. But hardly anyone ever stopped me and asked me like, hey, how will this work in the real world? So when we start university and everyone around us is doing the same thing, the teachers are expecting a certain style, it's really tough to know what else is out there without any other form of guidance, which is why I think that the summer schools are a great way to discover a different type of architectural education. I was introduced to the world of traditional architecture through the Bruce Summer School, and I applied because I wanted to be able to debate and discuss the problems with what I was learning. I knew that I was confused about like so many things in my university, but I wasn't really sure why. And as you can see, there are like so many amazing summer schools for people to attend, and these amazing organizations like the Create Streets Foundation, the Princess Foundation, and Street Level Australia, which just give so many opportunities and grants to young students looking to pursue traditional architecture. So yeah, as I mentioned, I went to the Bruce Summer School in 2023, which I wanted to shed some light on. This is a picture of all of us with our mentor Nadia down at the bottom. And it was really such an eye-opening and great experience for me. I learned so much within the span of just a month, and it helped me gain clarity in terms of the direction I wanted my education and career to take. The way we learned was so different from university, and I just wanted to quickly go through like just the first week schedule at the Bruce Summer School. There were lectures, site visits, drawing sessions. We were really busy the whole day, but it was great because we were all learning so much. And my whole perspective on what good architecture is, and I learned to question so many of the things that I had previously learned. Yeah, so one of the main ways that we studied, and just one of the ways I think everybody should be studying architecture, is through observation. We visited churches, museums, squares, markets, and we just observed and drew. And I think this was the best way to understand the Bruce style, and that was by looking at the Bruce style. And through all this observing, each of us was able to like build a sort of inventory of these design elements that we liked and that we could eventually use in our final projects. It was like kind of creating your own encyclopedia. And by studying all these different types of buildings, we weren't limited to a single typology. So we really started to understand the correlation between different buildings that were built in the same Bruce style. It was a lot of fun, I think, for all of us. These are what some of the drawings look like just after a week of attending the school. We had really great teachers, and they would give us tips and tricks so that everyone's drawing skills could improve really rapidly. College, at least for me, didn't really give me the opportunity to draw that much. Everything was on the computer, but the point is the computer can't really think of you. I think every design for a new building, starts by drawing by hand, and it's important to have that hand-eye brain coordination. Of course, these like drawings can easily later be converted into online plans for construction workers and engineers. But doing a lot of the measured drawings really helped me personally develop a better sense of scale. Most of my projects in college weren't based on real sites, so I didn't have a lot of site visits like I had during the summer school. So it helped me so much to learn from old buildings rather than just pictures of buildings, which are usually clicked when buildings are new. And then we did facade studies and finally started working on the final project in the last week of the summer school. Some people worked on the same site, and then some people worked on the same building within the same site. I did a counter proposal for the Bruges Library and Archive in the city of Bruges, along with 2 other people from the summer school. And on the left is the plan for my building. I remember all of us struggling together to make our plans and coming up with ideas, but it was honestly so much fun, and I kind of miss it because the environment was just so productive. But we all had access to amazing books and so many lectures by then, and we had visited so many buildings that building something in the Bruce style didn't really seem like the toughest thing in the world, even though we had only been there for like 3 weeks before that. And then these are some of my other drawings from that project. This building, even though we were only given, I think, 4 to 5 days for the final project, we all put in so much detail into the buildings, and someone was there to help us every step of the way. In the end, we all had to present in front of a panel, and we had a very prestigious panel of architects, designers, academics, craftsmen, and so on. And it was an honor to be critiqued by them. And it was a really good experience because you put in all your hard work and then you get constructive criticism, which it wasn't harsh at all. And it was good because we all got to like bear fruit of all the hard work we had done at the end of the month. And it was good to see all your friends' work being displayed as well. And then I wanted to emphasize that when I went back to my university, my whole way of sort of looking at projects and designing had essentially changed. I made sure I studied context really hard, looked at lots and lots of precedents, and most importantly, I wasn't afraid of copying, which is like such a bad thing at university. But I try to put less pressure on myself to create something unique and something different. And to my surprise, this was met with a lot of praise from my professors that were architects themselves. And I used a mixture of hand drawing and computer drawing to find a way that would be acceptable in my university submissions, and held healthy debates with students and other teachers. And so so many of my classmates were fascinated with everything that I did at the summer school, the hand drawings, this sort of different way of looking at buildings and learning, and a different way of approaching projects. So I think a lot of people are drawn to this sort of traditional, beautiful architecture. I think people intuitively recognize beauty in architecture and are called to it more than they are called to plain modernist buildings. And then you can see how my model making changed as well. This model actually looks like an architectural model, and you can get a sense of the spaces and the buildings. This was a project for student housing in Narrabri, a really hot and rural place in Sydney. And I just focused on making the building beautiful and comfortable instead of making it like super cool and new, which is like what I was told to do before, and I was praised for it. We had this was my second semester project. So for this one, we had architects and engineers sort of come from outside, and they all really just appreciated the simplicity of the whole project. I wanted to just finish by saying that attending the summer school really helped me a lot with my confidence. I feel like a lot of the youth in architecture university is confused and follows what they are told blindly. By the time they finish university and they have good computer drafting skills, but not the ability to design actual buildings. And that missing confidence is something that summer schools and outside programs, personal mentors really help with, which is why I encourage like a lot of young students at university to try it out. If we want to change the way we design our cities and make sure we move towards a beautiful future, we have to take steps to ensure that it will happen, right? And we as the youth as the youth and the future of architecture, have such a strong responsibility to ensure that we build beautiful cities that add to the history of a place and represent its identity. Thank you.
Thank you, Tarini. Beautifully said. Next, we have, well, I just wanted to say that in Mexico, we have a lot of criticism when we mention traditional architecture, because they think it's a Eurocentric thing, but actually, I would like to emphasize that this is an international thing as well. So on that note, on that regard, we have next Tasneem Sraikat.
Hi,
Tasneem.
everyone. Thank you, Flavio. My name is Tasneem, and I'm from Jordan. I'm currently based in Jordan. My background, I came from a visual arts background, and I did a master's in architecture. And like many people, I received a very modernist education. So I'm going to focus today on the idea of affinity and belonging, and the hands-on aspect of learning traditional architecture. So I'll share my screen. So affinity, to have affinity is to have a natural liking for and understanding of something. It's also a feeling of belonging to a place. Traditional buildings that are designed and built for a place and its people, using local materials and crafts, always demonstrate an affinity with their context. In the process of unlearning the modern education that I received as a student, I have taken a step back to study traditional architecture by participating in hands-on construction workshops and classical architecture courses. So some of these workshops include dry stone wall and stair construction. So I'll run through these quickly. We did the lower part, this wall and the stair. And it was a group project that was completed over a span of 2 weeks. There was brick arch construction, blue stone carving, and Gothic stone arch construction with the table ronde. So this was a really, really challenging, very interesting experience. I really enjoyed it. I also took a workshop involving Adobe and Cobb building methods, and we created an extension for a wall using those two methods. So this was a prototype that was designed and created by myself and another teammate. This was the final prototype. There was also earth and plaster and rammed earth. We also took a plaster molding workshop with Professor Patrick Webb, which was really fun. And we were asked to pick out a molding in the city of Bruges. So I drew the sketch of molding of this doorway, and Professor Webb took the sketch and he created a geometric drawing out of it, and he cut out a metal profile. to create the formwork for the plaster molding. And this is the result. And we each, of course, before we created this, went into this process, we learned about plaster mixtures, and we each were able to try and use this plaster molding formwork. And the result is on the far right. So as part of my education and in the process of learning unlearning my modern education again, I've developed a deeper appreciation of the beauty and durability of traditional buildings and how they are also grounded in ancient principles of geometry and proportion. So I have learned about these principles as a fellow at the Classic Planning Institute. So these are some of the projects that we worked on while with the CPI. This was Lakeside Bridge at Hampton Park. So the hand drawing part was really, for me, something very new to actually draft by hand and use these geometric principles. The same was applied to this revision of a wall, a church gate in Jerusalem. And this project was a counter proposal that we did at the Brussels Summer School. And that was a really formative experience for me because I learned so much about traditional architecture, the history, and this was a group project, so this was all hand drafted from scratch. So that was really new to me as well. So I want to talk about something more closer to home. I took a look at my father's childhood home, and I was mainly interested in the roof construction, but I found that this is one of those places that I have experienced firsthand while growing up, which demonstrates an affinity with its context. And it makes a lot of sense why those of us who are lucky to either grow up in a traditional home or had elder family members who lived in such homes, we cherish those moments, and those times were always very special. So without a doubt, those places definitely connect us to our surroundings and roots. And my father, who was always speaking very proudly about the joy of observing the construction process of his home as a child, he would always tell me about it. And every time we are driving through the countryside, we would pass by a piece of land or a tree, like a specific type of tree or bush or stone, he would tell a story and share a piece of knowledge about it. So this is how I learned about the roof construction. For example, this is the Aleppo pine tree, which was used for the roof construction in the old part of their house. This image shows the third phase of the house, so it actually looks more new, but I won't go into the other phases, so I will just focus on the roof construction. Another material that I found really interesting was the spiny burnet, which is highly abundant in Jordan, and it's everywhere. And it's also it's a very strong material, and this is also used in the roof construction. So on the far right, you can see the dry state of this bush while it's flattened, and they would add layers and layers of that on top of the. So I will explain the layers as well. But here you can see the current state of the roof. Unfortunately, it's been neglected and it was not restored. But I hope that I suggested that we could restore it or somehow fix it. And so I hope that we get to do that someday. It was hard to take good pictures because I couldn't really go inside. It was dangerous to go inside from fear of things collapsing. But it's a very beautiful structure. And so I did this sketch showing the layers, the images from left to right, all the materials in order of application. So you have the Aleppo pine tree, the cane, and the spiny burnet, which we also call bulan in Arabic. Then you have straw, like a thick layer of straw, and then you mix the clay and sand with straw to create like a very thick sealant layer of clay. And then on top of those, you mix these three materials with gravel, and you get a very strong, thick sealant layer on top. So in the process, I was also very interested in studying materials locally, specifically building materials in Jordan by engaging in hands-on material studies of different clays and natural fibers. Traditionally, people utilized as much as what they could find useful in their surroundings, such as clay, straw, and even animal fibers, which are some of the most abundant materials we have here in Jordan. Here we can see a map of the material sources where we, with the help of my family and some of their friends, we were able to find 5 different types of clays and wool and goat hair. Here you can see the purpose and use of these basic the materials in a basic Adobe block. And I was interested in doing this study, although I did make some blocks, but I was interested in creating Adobe tiles. So I explored these all these materials for the tiles. I want to share this video. I sped it up, so it shows the process of taking the clay raw material from the actual raw state to the clay powder. So these are two types of clays, the red and white kaolin clay. And you can see here, this is the red kaolin, white kaolin. This is the process, soaking it. Leaving it to soak and then straining it. And then leaving it to dry for a few days until it's completely dry. And then grinding it. And in the process, it's interesting because you see the difference between these materials. I found that the red kaolin clay is actually tougher than the white kaolin clay. I had to use the blender to create the actual powder in the end. So going back to the tiles that I was working on, I was interested in the decorative aspect as well, and possibly acoustic, their acoustic quality. So I added wool as sort of this aesthetic aspect, and I took the dirty wool and I washed it, carded it, and felted it by hand, and then I dyed it using natural dyes. And this is the formwork that I used. So although this is all handmade, the only thing that was actually made using digital tools was these the molds, the first one on the left and the last one on the right. So I was trying to explore how, we could utilize this digital tool to help with the process, and I was exploring different shapes and forms, but everything else was made by hand. And so you can see these tiles, they have the dyed wool within it. I also did water resistance tests based on, of course, traditional methods. So I was trying to also show and raise awareness about this existing knowledge that has been, long lost in many places. These are samples of some tiles, which are they have not been processed. Everything, the idea is to just take it as it is and not use, not use any kilns or anything. So it's a raw product. And this was a prototype for some kind of partition that I was exploring. And this was another prototype of these tiles that when I put them together, I connected them with clay plaster, and I wanted people to touch it. So I wanted people to actually feel what it feels like. And so I allowed when I displayed it, I allowed people to actually touch it and see, get a feel of it. So yeah, this is the end, and these are my learning points. I have 5 learning points after this whole journey, going from modern architecture into traditional architecture. Past models of practice contain a wealth of knowledge, wisdom, and innovation. They have withstood the test of time and are still relevant today if we actually really look at them. There are plenty of available material resources around us, and we just need to look around for them and educate ourselves on how to utilize them based on existing and document precedents. Beauty and durability come hand in hand, and beauty is sustainable. While modern fabrication tools can increase the efficiency in some areas, the outcome of the human hand is far superior in quality. Finally, good architecture is an outcome of collective work, intuition, and studied methods, which as a result builds a strong community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tasneem. That was really inspiring.
Thank you.
There's a question on the chat. When was the original home built?
Oh, the first part was built in 1946. So my dad was 1 year old. And the second part, I had to check, but it was somewhere in the 50s. And then the last part was in 1969, I think, yeah. So the last part was commissioned by my dad, and he basically was in charge of it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have also from the Asian continent, Zarin Rafadia.
Thank you, Flavio. So, hello everyone. I'm Dia, a fellow at CPI and a soon-to-be graduate from an extremely modern school of architecture. It's a very drastic combination, and I will be presenting today about the next generation architects, and as I have referred them as next generation architect because we are so much computer aided this generation, and it's like we are, what I was saying, that it's like this generation is, I have referred them as a computer aided generation who are majorly exhibiting a lack of creativity, skills, and a sense of aesthetics. And I put this wonderful picture here by Francis Terry as a representation of that disparage. So here I will start because every one of you are such a brilliant mind. So I'll start with a bit of mild story starting from my own. So before getting into architecture, I always had this dream of building a small house for myself. And I always used to make these sketches and designs of that house. And this was a representation of that design. But after getting into architecture, this was the first house that I actually designed. So you can see the drastic contrast of the iron. What happens that in most cases, we do get into architecture without knowing what architecture, what we will be taught, because most of us has this image of architecture and we don't even know that this is also considered as architecture now. And after getting into architecture, what we learn for the 5 years is something like this. So this is a old model made by me, and I asked one of my teachers that if you like this kind of architecture, you're always praising how beautiful it is, how it has a lot of character, it has impressive facades and use of materials. So why do you still teach us this? So his answer was, because this is contemporary. Now, in the name of contemporary, what we are learning is that it's not anymore art, it's only abstract, and only abstract is modern, and nothing classical, everything classical is medieval. And we always have to invent something, because if we look at the past and if we take inspiration from it, if we're copying it, it's cheating. And so to represent that, I have placed this image here where you can see a very beautiful sketch in the background, and it's being replaced by this conceptual sketch by Frank Gehry, who is a very prominent architect of our time. Now, this shows how drastic the difference in skills is, and what we gained from it. We lost the beauty, the character of the buildings, the perfect order that was there, the right sense of identity, that what was the kind of building it was it a public building, was it a, but what we gained is this building which doesn't have a character, which doesn't have a proper sense of beauty. No, there is no identity to it, and there is a sense of missing order. It's like just disoriental forms creating an abstract and without any meaning or logical meaning behind it. To learn this in a school where I don't have a problem with the kind of people, I mean, I don't have an extremist mentality where I want to put in, force people to like what I like, but I also don't like the way people force their idea on me, because it's like there is a ban on classical architecture. If you like anything classical or traditional, they're always telling you you're getting misled. Classical is not an era appropriate thing. But and there is no demand for it. And it's ingrained inside our head for the 5 years that I have studied, that we don't have a future if we pursue classical or traditional architecture. So we are always engaged in this race, like we are moving to please them, to surprise them, to invent something that they have never seen before, with something parametric, with something organic and abstract form, and then place a green facade over it, because we don't have the capacity to design a beautiful facade. And what it resulted to is this knowledge gap. We don't have a proper knowledge. We don't know what is order. Even I, for a really long time, I knew order as columns, because that's what I was taught in one or two history courses. And what we lack is we don't have any crafting skills. We don't have any sculpting skills or painting skills. And this ultimately resulted us to turn into software generated or software oriented more. We just make something very abstract and put it into a computer simulation, and then we get something that doesn't even actually make sense. It's just something that we have to invent to please our teachers, and it turned us into this computer-aided generation, and where we spend most of our time ultimately. So how do we get out of this? If we still, after all these 5 years, if you still want to pursue a classical architecture-based career or a traditional architecture-based career, so you have to look out for institutions like classic planning, or you have to go to Belgium summer school. So, and these are kind of like eye-openers, because they teach us that no, traditional and classical architecture are still working, and it's not something of the past, because there is nothing called modern. It is just a modernistic approach where people are just putting a thought, a based idea that they have selected, that these are the things that we have to do, and that from the time that it had started, it's still going on, and it's not modern anymore. It's just that an concept that we are bound with. So what we need to learn after, at least what I learned after attending this summer school and then being affiliated with classic planning, that architectural designs must need, and has to be based on in sound building principles. We need to have more hands-on paper experiences, practice, and gaining more skills like drafting and crafting and sculpting. So this is what I have been doing since the last 1 year, and I've been designing something that I'm not disliking inside my head anymore. I'm not doing it just to please my teachers anymore, and just to make myself happy. And I know that I'm more happy with the work that I'm learning now. So this is something that I did in the Belgium summer school, a pavilion, and then for classic planning, I did another Mughal style pavilion. For there was a gate designed and perspective drawings, and I started to learn from the very basics, from how the proportions of the columns work and how every details and everything can come together and make beautiful architecture. So to end it, I should put this picture again here to represent that the beautiful architecture or the skills can again be regained if we focus on gaining those skills or preserving what was before, and we focus on the youths to be more involved in this and to make them knowledgeable, aware that there is a future in classical and traditional architecture, and there are people who are ready to help us to pursue a career in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dia. That was very insightful. On the sake of brevity, we should go next with Emily Wen.
Hi everyone, just gonna share my screen and introduce myself. So my name is Emily Wen, and I am originally from New York, but I live in London. I'm just gonna give a little talk about my journey from art to architecture and back as an architectural designer. So I was born and bred in New York City, where I was surrounded by all kinds of beautiful buildings. So there's Grand Central Station, and the central building is a former police headquarters, and then the right is McKinley and White's municipal building just near the Brooklyn Bridge. So everywhere I went, there were sky rises, but there's also a lot of beauty around me. And a few years into my college career, I went and studied abroad in Florence, where I was studying art history at the time. So I was surrounded by all the Michelangelos and the Botticellis and all the great Raphaels, the great names of art and architecture, of art, really just diving into the history and the theory of what makes art great and beautiful. But there was something nagging at me. I was always wondering, what about the practice, right? So I'm surrounded by Leonardo, Raffaello, and Botticelli, just looking at these really beautiful paintings and how the artist developed such a unique style. And these are some of my favorite paintings here. And the more I studied art history, the more I said, the theory is really, really great, but I just really feel like I'm missing the practice. How can I be part of the practice? And so we were also doing a Greek seminar. I was with my professor. I thought maybe I'd go into graphic design. And we were just surrounded by these temples where we went to the temple of Apollo Base. And this is actually where one of the first noted Corinthian columns was found, or noted to be found. We had a chance in helping to restore some of the stylobates, or the steps of the Greek temple. It was amazing, being able to put my hands together. So when I told my professor, hey, I'm thinking of getting a degree in design, maybe graphic design, but I guess today's modern days UX UI design. And he says, Emily, why not architecture? And I thought to myself, yeah, why not architecture? That's something I could probably do. So fast forward a few years, I applied to the University of Notre Dame, and I really enjoyed my time there. It was some of the most formative years of my life. We learned to do so many different things. I mean, the amount of hard skills we learned, whether it be hand drafting, watercoloring, learning about structures, remembering all these formulas and load-bearing walls, masonry walls. There's all sorts of terminologies. It's like learning classical architecture was learning a whole new language. What is an entablature? What is a cyma? What's a cyma recta? How do you use, a drafting pencil? And it was just incredible to be able to learn all that at Notre Dame. And one of the great privileges we got was we got to study in Rome, but we also got to go on a Paris studio with Professor Duncan Stroik, and we learned the L'École des Beaux-Arts method. We studied a lot of the great architects before us, and then we had a study about the architecture there in Paris. So this is L'Invalide, this is the Piet Trianon in Versailles, and then the Notre Dame Cathedral, or Notre Dame, before everything, before the fire. And then we were asked to design our own building based on what we saw around us. So we had our hand in, so I studied the Louvre. So this is one of the details of the east facade of the Louvre. So every time I go to Paris, I just go to that side of the Louvre just to be like, wow, I was here, I drew this. You get to really commit all of the proportion to memory, into columniation, just really understanding, how do you space these things apart, and how does it look good together? So in the far right, you see a little esquisse that I did. So basically what we did is we had a building a design. It's the International Center of Democracy. We had 24 hours to come up with a design. It was like plan, section, elevation, just get it done in 24 hours. And then once you've got the design, you don't change it, you just develop it. And that was really interesting. So I encourage some of you, if you guys go on back to your summer schools or maybe even in your own practice, how will this, if you just give yourself 24 hours, how will it look if you just give all of your brain power into it and just throw it on? And so this is the project that I came up with. It's institutional building. So so in future, another way we designed was so that can this building later on be reused or repurposed? So this is the International Center for Democracy, but it can very well be a school. It could be an office building. So it's about how can we make sure that the uses of the building can be, more than one. How can it be serving people throughout time, throughout the ages? And then we also had a section through the building, a technical section, which I thought was really fun to draw as a student. Not as fun as a professional, if you guys know what I mean. So this is one of the really, really interesting projects to really use the Lakota boson method. And then after that, we went on my third year, I got to do my thesis, went back to New York City, and I decided to design a train station, a market hall station in New York City. And here's some of the work in progress. So those boards on the left are about 5 feet long, so almost as tall as I am. And then the ones on the right are just the sections. I cut through the section a couple times. And then here is some of the final images. So if you look to the left, that's where it is located in Union Square Station. So my high school was really close to Union Square. It was in Union Square, it's on 16th Street in New York City. And so I decided I just wanted something to really demarcate this being a really special square. And so this is it. And I also got the plans from MTA for where the subways lie. So that was really interesting as well. That was a really cool part of designing is the programming. And then after that, when I graduated, I went to London, which is where I'm based now, and I got to do some work with Atom Architecture. This was for a planning permission for a master estate. So these are the various buildings that are coming up. So that it's really interesting as well when we join practices that allow us to understand how to build traditionally and how to design classically in a way that that you're proud of the designs that you do and you want to bring forth their beauty into the world. And here was work done with Russell Taylor. We did a flat refurbishment for an Edwardian mansion. That was really interesting as well because it was an older type of building, so you had to make sure everything was gonna abide to the it wasn't listed, but it was in the conservation area. We had to make sure, we were in line with the freeholders and that the client would be happy. And here's one of my favorite projects I did, which is at St. John the Baptist Cathedral. If you look at the bottom right, the bottom left, this is the before of the cathedral. This is how it used to look like. And then here's how it is now. We designed a bishop's throne, and we also helped with the altar as well. Not shown here is we actually helped design 3 tombs. So it's going to be one of the current bishops, and then I guess is the subsequent ones as well. So that was kind of morbid, but it's very interesting to see. I was like making sure the paint color looked good or that it matched the stone. It's very, very interesting. Really enjoyed this project. So if you're ever in Norwich, come by and have a look. And then here's someone's another flat refurbishment in a place in Holland Park in London. So I also got to do a little bit of interior design as well, which is actually really related. It relates so much to architecture. It's a little bit more, there's so many more decisions you have to make with interior designs actually. Well, maybe not as more than architecture, but on a different scale. It's actually quite interesting as well. So this one was like a little bit more, how do you incorporate the classic and also the minimal style with the home? And beyond architecture, I'm also with a Classic Planning Institute as well, helping with urban design. And this is a square that we helped with, that we designed in literally 1 week, just because we had such a great team together. So in the back, you see the band shell is similar to the one in New York City. And then the pavilion is the one in Kensington Gardens. So they're in Hyde Park near where William and Kate used to live. And then, just having a look at how these things work together so nicely. So this is something I'm really proud to be part of as well. But beyond that, I also do a little bit of pottery. So these things were made by hand, and just being able to, I think there's so much of architecture and art that goes together where we have to build with what we know within our bodies. Like, so by using our hands to understand the material, how do you build up a material, and how do you form something and create something that's functional as well as being beautiful. So I think that's very important. So I urge you all out there to get your crafts on. And lastly, something I got into a lot is Chinese painting. So ever since I moved to London, a lot of people ask me, where are you from? Where's your accent from? Oh, I'm Chinese, but I'm also American. So it made me realize my Chineseness a lot. But that's also when I decided, why don't I learn more Chinese? So I actually took up Mandarin, took up Chinese painting. And I think this actually adds to my artistic ability as both an architect and an artist. So I think it's really so important to be able to dive into that part of ourselves, that journey into art and architecture. And I really want to say that as architects, we are inherently artists. We reflect, we make, and we create. So I think it's really important to let that creativity pass through our eyes and our spirit and our hands, and to always be creating. So thank you so much for listening, and hope you guys got something out of this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much. Next, we have from Finland, sorry, Nikolai Bruma.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I'll start right away. So, hello, everyone. My name is Nikolai Brummer, and I'm a 16-year-old high school student from Finland. If you don't know where Finland is, it's in Northern Europe, next to Sweden. I'm also a member of INTBAU and a Knight of the Round Table. Firstly, I feel honored and I'm grateful for the chance that I have been given to be here talking today. Thank you to the TAG 24 team and our moderator, Flavio, for contacting me. What I want to talk about today is the importance of engaging young people early in this field, and also how to do it. And when I talk about young people, I'm not only talking about young adults, but also high school students. What do I mean then by engaging the youth? Well, in my case, for instance, I got introduced to the architect's job 2 years ago on an almost 2-week probation at traditional architect Allan Strusse's office. This made my want to become an architect and craftsman grow even more. I learned so much from him during those 2 weeks. He took me seriously, which is also highly important. So please, if you ever meet someone young who is interested in what you do, give them right away the opportunity to be introduced to it. Don't be afraid to take someone young to your work to follow what you do. Secondly, since we young people are the future, we should be at least one of your main target audiences on social media. Almost every one of us uses it daily. It's the most efficient place for advertisements targeted at my generation. It's the way most of us get informed about, for example, summer schools. As we all know, the architectural uprising movement is our most powerful weapon when fighting against bad modernism. The content creators there use the right methods for also getting the youth interested. One extremely good example is Ruben Hansen's Aesthetic City. I want to congratulate him for hitting the bullseye when creating content for everyone, especially the youth. For elder generations, it's understandably difficult to know how to approach the younger generations. Therefore, you can hire someone younger as a content creator for your platforms. Thirdly, host events where you have professionals, but also young, interested people. In these events, you connect different generations with each other. You give the chance for the youth to build a network, not only with you, but also among themselves. A great example was last year's Estival in Belém, where the summer school students of the Round Table and Utrecht met. There was a wonderful group of specialists and students from all around the world. Many of you that are here today, including myself, were there and can only thank Nadia and Noé and their team for it. You can also invite young people personally to events or conferences like this one. That happened to me, which is great. And this way, they get to know and see the faces of main influencers and introduce them to this community. Finally, invest in the next generation. As I said, we are the future. You need us to continue this movement. If one can teach and convince someone young early why traditional architecture is better than modern, it makes it more difficult for architecture universities to brainwash them. Therefore, act, for example, as a sponsor. Give them an opportunity to participate in our summer school. And don't be afraid of high school students. I can assure you, we don't bite. The Round Table gave me a place in their summer school last year, a good example of taking the youth early in. Sometimes the earlier one starts, the better. Time you spend on us will not go to waste. It will bear fruit. So my 4 learning points are: 1, give opportunities for young people to follow your job. 2, share information on a preferable way to the youth. 3, host events for building networks. And 4, invest in the youth. Act as a sponsor. And if you ever come to Finland, I would be more than happy to show you around. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikolai. You didn't have slides. Am I wrong? Am I correct?
Sorry?
Did you use slides?
No, I didn't.
Okay, good, great. That was good. I've just been notified that some people are going to join from the Rome breakout room, and that we are going to hand out the certificates of recognition when this session is complete. So in the meantime, I don't know if the panelists may have some questions for each other, or from the audience, we could also receive some questions or comments or suggestions. Yeah. So is there any questions or comments from panelists or from the audience?
Hey, Flavio, I would like to say something. Being
Sure.
probably the oldest one of this group here, I'd have to say I'm very encouraged to see the direction that so many younger people are taking with classical architecture. I felt that when I was in school, that was not an option. Well, actually, it wasn't an option. And so it's great to see just the direction that the schools and the students and all the additional opportunities of the summer schools and other organizations are giving all the young students and the next generation of architects currently. I'm a little jealous.
Yes, thank you, Christopher. I doubt, well, I'm too a little bit jealous because I didn't study it, but we have a question from Joshua. Are there any traditional design summer school programs for high school age? Actually, I think there are. You could
Yes.
apply. Sorry, Nikolai.
Yeah, for example, the Bruges Summer School, they accept, I think, from 16 years old up. So that's high school students. I was one of them, so I guess it's possible.
Yes, living proof. And also from Utrecht, we also accept people from 16 years old as well. I think 15 years old is the minimum. Also in Mexico, we're accepting people of any age. So I don't know the other summer schools. I guess it's the same
There are
story in
also-
Spain.
There are also summer schools which are hosted by Benedictine College, and then there is another one in I think in Catholic University that they also have traditional architecture summer school, and college student, high school students can join them. Especially the Benedictine one, it's focused on the high school students.
Notre Dame also has a discovery program for high school students as well.
I think bringing all this to the high school level, why high school? Really middle school. It's my parents in the 1930s in middle school learned the orders. I have their sketchbooks. And that was part of standard education back then. So I don't see any reason not to. Fundamentally, all the concepts are, a pre-adolescent can understand it. It doesn't take much. I mean, what's not to understand about truth, goodness, and beauty? Probably you can say that an intelligent person from age 8 can probably do it. Then we have all these markers, 12, 13, 16, 18, 21, all these time markers. It's really about, it's a personal thing. And I think all we need to do as programs is just have a good enough questionnaire that can show that the person is mature enough to handle it. But certainly the architectural literacy and intensives, they're perfect. All the summer schools, I would say, teenage open.
The AIA Center for Architecture in New York City, they do events for children where they can learn about architecture. So this could be a really good thing if they learn about the orders there.
Yeah, you know, what they're brainwashing the kids from an early age. It's so strange. Most people who go to study architecture come from oh, by the way, in about a minute we're going to be joined by the people from the other room. They're going to join us here, and we're actually going to go through a little bit of a ceremony. We're going to recognize the youth leadership. I think it's very, very important to recognize you all who've been speaking this afternoon and some who are not here as the leaders, the coming leaders of this movement. At the end of the day, it's all about handing it over to you and giving you, we're not going to lay the tracks down for you, but we're going to give you the engine. Bart Urban wants to speak, and then I'm sorry, Flavio, that I butted in. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, also thank you for speaking up, everyone. Really, really important. And just want to mention there's an opportunity for any of you who would like to give some insights on architectural education, because Ruben and I are going to prepare something for the Aesthetic City. So we are looking actively for students who want to talk about their experiences. And yeah, gonna be exciting. 43, 42, 41, 40 seconds till we're all being pulled back into the main room. That's where we're meeting everybody else. Thank you. So don't be surprised when we jump to the next thing. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, that's it. I will leave my email contact in the chat, and then you can just contact me if you want to talk about it.
Okay, 14 seconds to moving out. There's a little blue button at the bottom of your window here. It says leave room. We can all leave and anticipate.
Pablo, do we know what we're doing here?
Yes, we are just waiting for everyone to gather back. But the thing is that we're having a little bit of a problem of where actually we all have to go. If we're going back to their main room, if we're going back to Greece, if we're going back to Rome. So we just need to figure out where we are all going.
No, I think this is it, Pablo.
Exactly.
Yes.
Back to Nathan. So I think that the idea is that now Dr. Buras, which I don't know if he's here or not, will be saying some final words for the day. It's good to see all of you. I can see a lot of familiar faces. I hope that all of you have exposed your wonderful careers and the wonderful future that you're going to bring to us. So here it's our CEU and certification registration, and Dr. Buras will be here very soon. So I hope that all the ones who have been in Athens have enjoyed Athens. Ourselves in Rome, we have enjoyed our Rome a lot. I have seen from external sources that apparently has been quite a success. So congratulations, Flavio, for moderating it, and congratulations to everyone for taking part of it. You are the future, and we need to build a brighter future, as we were saying in the Rome room.
So
Yes, please,
thank you,
Dr.
Professor Funes. Thank you, Professor Funes. Mr. Irwin, do you want to run the CEU and certificate registration poll thing? I hope that he's here. It's always nice to have our director and producer with us. We're going to recognize young leadership. We're handing the movement over in the present. We're constantly handing it over. We're not going to lay the tracks down for what the generations that come after, but we are going to help, pass to them the engine that we've helped reassemble in the last several years. I wanted to recognize several people, and they're going to receive these certificates. The Assembly of the Traditional Architecture Gathering of 2024 is recognizing Flavio Diaz-Miron and the others for devoting their efforts to the traditional architecture and urbanism movement for the built environment. Make light and build well. Oh my, I don't know what's going on here with the breakout rooms. I do apologize. I kind of feel like Noah's Ark, except we got on the wrong boat. So maybe they're gonna move us all to now we have 40 minutes to leave this room. Our director is very meticulous, and he's working from a plan. But like God, sometimes you don't know what the plan is. So here we go. And we're going to leave, I suppose, or we're going to be left in 10,
Dr.
9.
Buras, I think that if we leave the session, we will go in the main one altogether. So I think that's the only thing to do now.
Exactly. Here they are now.
Everybody seems to have left. Oh, 3 people.
Well,
4 people.
all right. So I think we have everybody back here now. So I can turn it back over to you folks. And I believe you are in the process of going through these certificates. Isn't that correct? So Dr. Buras, you are on mute at the moment.
Thank you for taking such good care of us and putting us all in the right places. Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Recognizing youth leadership, we started out by recognizing Flavio Diaz-Miron for devoting his efforts to traditional architecture and urbanism movement for the built environment. Fight looks. It's fight looks, right? Or fiat lux? No. It's fight lux et edificare bene. Anybody know Latin around here? I don't. But I make believe I do. I understand some words sometimes. Make light or let there be light. I'm not sure which one it is. We're going to fix it before we issue them officially. And build well. And this is signed by the directors of the Classic Planning Institute, who are also the directors of the STOA. Congratulations, Mr. Diaz-Miron. I have watched you grow and contribute, and I'm really I really admire how you're doing what you're doing and the many areas you're doing this in. Ms. Wen, we just heard about your journey, and you are taking a position in the traditional architectural world. I would say you're advancing to a pole position of some sort in this area. Congratulations for the recognition. Allison Hogg is not here today. She is a board member of the CPI, and as such is getting this award as well. Mr. Christopher Derrick, thank you for being a notable member of the Classic Planning Academy and doing the work you're doing already in the field. Ms. Reichert, your special interests, I think, are inspiring compared to what could have been if you had just stayed where you were and not been interested in so many things that are not taught anywhere except for the very special places you have sought out, and you're carving for yourself and for others a real special path with regard to the materials and all that stuff in addition to the design aspects. Congratulations. Ms. Dia, your talent and energies are noted. I look forward to your next phase academically, and very, very grateful to be a recipient of your good work at the Classic Planning Studio. Thank you. The same goes for Ms. Reichert, who has taken a project manager position at the Classic Planning Studio. So thank you for your work there too. Mr. Lambert is not here. He's probably climbing a mountain somewhere. He has successfully climbed the classical mountain and is a fellow at the Classic Planning Academy. Maria Solove, for the amazing work that you have been doing and the good sense and multicultural weaving that you are doing in the best traditional sense. Tarini Sharma, wonderful, wonderful work, a leader in your part of the world. Amazing to see you doing that, Mr. Brummer. We never thought we would give a high school student an award, but Mario Wotila insists that you are a leader and you better not let her down. And Monica Ishtar Mondragon, don't know if she is here, but together with Mr. Diaz-Miron, she has been leading the Mexican Architecture Uprising and Intibao and all the other things they're doing down there in and around what is probably the greatest city of North America, Mexico City. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for this honor to recognize these extraordinary young people. Did we have the poll for the continuing education thing?
Yeah.
Yes,
you can find that in the chat.
This is a great opportunity to come down on my knees and ask for volunteers and donations. We need help in putting together the continuing education. It's going to be a huge project. It is every year. Those who have graduated from it, such as Chris Fagan, are you still here? Lucien Style and Roger Jackson. It has been it's just too much for 2, 3, 4 people to handle. It's a huge amount of work. Preparing the book and preparing the requests. It's extremely very, very hard and much hard work is what it is, but we do it with love and we need help. So please go back to the tag 24 page, hit the donate button and donate as much as you possibly can till the point it hurts. And if you wish to really suffer pain, and this is not flagellation, this is more along the lines of we just need help, please send us an email to cgi@classicplanning.com with a volunteer in it that will know that you can help us out. We need that help to complete the production on all this. Thank you very much. We're going to see tomorrow a little bit of a climax in the proceedings. It's going to end with Maurice Culot, James Stevens Curl, Mr. Smiley, and Branko Mitrovic. They're going to give a high octane summary of where we're going and why we're going there. We're going to hear from the most notable, active part of our movement, the architectural uprising, and most especially the people in Norway who are going in separate directions, but they're tied together to the same sleigh, and that is Norway, and getting their built environment culture back on track. We're going to hear from the builders of some of the biggest traditional projects in Europe. Surely Val d'Europe and some others are people from there are going to be speaking. It's going to be a notably significant design session with them. They're going to tell us about what they did. And we're going to start out with talks about forestry and how we are supposed to steward natural resources. We're going to have people discussing traffic and the economics or the perceived economics of tall buildings. We're going to have the climatic, a troika of climatic people speaking. Corey Riard, Jonathan Wetherill, and Ali Asaf on Mogul Gardens, colonial architecture, and embodied wisdom, traditional features for carbon reduction. We're going to talk about LED lighting. We're going to talk about campus design and orientation. And in the session, that's Goodbye Futurama. You can look up Futurama. We're living in it now. It was proposed it's almost 100 years old in 1936. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you, our sponsors from KEPCO, Bruce and Catherine. Thank you so much for being here and presenting your amazing work. I want to thank Nathaniel and Paul, Anna and Brandon from Chatham Park. If you happen to be here, thank you very much. And thank you for having us on your team in the work that we're doing for you. Thank you again, Wordsworth and Black. Our dear partners, Aesthetic City, Table Ronde, Harvard University Press, Reba, TAG, and the Classic Planning Academy. Thank you again to Roger and Rhonda Jackson and our pragmatic and romantic donors. Thank you. A big thank you to the speakers. I know it's hard to put all this material together, do all the bureaucratic stuff that we require because we're very corporate, and actually showing up on a weekend and giving us some of your precious personal time. Don't forget to get your copy of the Herald at it's in the library part of the classicplanning.org website, our general website. If somebody can put the Herald link in the chat window, thank you. Don't forget, you get 30% off the Art of Classic Planning, courtesy of Harvard. I think you have to do it straight from the Harvard website. That's the whole point of the exercise. Get the QR code and go from there. Thank you all. May our future look as pretty as this. Final thoughts, questions?
Just a big thank you to you all, and especially the organizers, Nir, and your team. Thank you. It was very rewarding to sit in on today.
If you enjoyed it, it's been a real successful event, I could say. Thank you for your amazing support. Any comments? Any other ideas? I invite everybody to open your cameras so people can see each other at least one time in this process, and say a wonderful goodbye and see you all tomorrow.
Ciao. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Good job.
To the people in Rome, I say ciao for now. See you tomorrow.
Ciao belli, buonanotte.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
See
all.
you tomorrow.
Thank you,
Thank you.
amazing people. Thank you.